That's a little bit of angle, but that's okay. Okay, that worked out well. So hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, everyone. We are going to get started with got a couple things here that we will go over, and we will talk about these a couple times throughout. So my name is Jennifer Hale, and I am a quilter, and I am working on busting up my stash. There are some things in my stash that I have purchased, and then there are some things in my stash that I have inherited. And so I consider these layer cakes, to be things that I have inherited. These are pre-cuts, and these pre-cuts were given to me through a shop hop that I attended. So I won, y'all. I won. And I won these, and they're absolutely adorable. They're durable in different ways depending on how I plan to use these. Yes, I do. I love a good layer cake. And so I plan to use these. I'm showing up in both spaces right now, just because I was like, you know what? Let me see what happens. So I decided to use these because they're not something I typically buy. So layer cakes are 10-inch squares that you can buy from the fabric store. Typically, layer cakes are pre-cuts of a fabric line. A lot of ways that you can tell that this is part of a fabric line is if you look on the back of it, and even though this is backwards, they will list all of the different numbers for those different fabrics. So they'll let you know if they gave you 2 of each fabric or 3 of each fabric here, but you'll get a general idea of, out of the 42 pieces that are in this collection, there's probably about 15 to 17 actual prints. And then the rest of it just repeated to make up the layer cake. So like I said, am not necessarily a fan of this because I'll just get yardage and I will cut the yardage up to make up the layer cake. You're going to pay a little bit more for a layer cake. You're paying for somebody's time, and that makes sense. If I cut it myself out of the yardage, then I'm cutting these down into 10-inch squares, or they don't even have to be 10-inch squares depending on the quilt that I'm making. So these absolutely can be things that I purchase the way that I want to on my own. So for example, this one, I can look at this side of it like almost like the spine of a book, and I can tell these are all white. And I'm typically not a white quilt maker because white gets dirty, y'all. And I don't have time for my white to get dirty. So what I do is I usually use other colors. So for example, I might use darker colors like this in a quilt, and I even open this one up because I had to see what this looked like on the inside. And to be quite honest with you, none of these fabrics are fabrics that I would use. They're a lot duller. They're a lot darker. These are not colors that typically I would show in a quilt. And so I don't know how long this is going to sit in my stash, just because, yeah. This isn't necessarily me. But I love the prints. It's just that it's not bright enough for me. But if I take this line, which is by Figo, and I take this line, I could see working these two together. And then what this would do is give me some sort of scrappy quilt that would have the light kind of break up the darkness. So I have to decide what I want to do. And it made my decision easier because I had 3 layer cakes and I was like, what do I do with these layer cakes? And I really wasn't sure what to do with them. But I figured, let me just leave these two together. And either I would do one of two things. Either I'm going to think of a quilt that these could be, or I may end up putting them in a pack and shipping them off. And somebody actually may win or get this as part of a giveaway. So I haven't decided yet, but you know, there are a lot of things that you can do with layer cakes. Again, these are pre-cuts. So absolutely you can take these and use them in your quilts. So there are a lot of quilts that call for them. But again, for me, not so much with this because, yeah, this one isn't doing it for me. So I have then the Free Spirit, and I've already pulled these apart, but this is more my aesthetic. So these colors are much brighter. There are some in there like this one that, you know, wasn't necessarily me, but it fits in a collection, so it will work in terms of color. But I'm a bright color person, and I was like, yes, for this particular quilt, these colors stand out much more for me. So I was like, yeah, perfect. So what am I making? I am working on a quilt, and this quilt is, the pattern is from Fabric Shop. It is a fat quarter shop. Lord, let me get the name right. It's Fat Quarter Shop, and it's exclusive by Fat Quarter. They do have a tutorial online, so I am not the first. And again, it's backwards because, yeah, I didn't flip the camera. So here it is here. And it's a really simple and easy quilt. All we're going to do for the first part of this is do 4x4. So we're going to use our layer cakes, and we're going to do 4x4, and then we're going to do some other things with it to make what's going to be this quilt. Hey, thank you. Thank you for just watching. Thank you for joining in. And again, I am on YouTube as well. So I'm not just here on TikTok. So I am on both. So thank you for joining in to follow along. So again, this is Fat Quarter Shop. It is a layer cake carousel, and it is a quick and easy make because everybody loves a quick make. Nobody wants something difficult to do. I love your fabrics, but I didn't catch the name. The name of the fabrics. So these fabrics are from Free Spirit. And again, this is backwards, right? And so this, they say, is a Tulip Pink True Colors collection. So the collection that is here, that's sitting on this side, and you'll see these in a second, but I'll slide these over just so you can see some of the patterns in here are mainly from Tulip Pink, and they are from Free Spirit fabric. Okay, let me not mix up my fabrics because I already did some work with them, so I do want to leave these separate from this. And a person that truly knows Tulip Pink knows Tulip Pink. So if you are a Tulip Pink fan, it's like, yes, that's Tulip Pink. Yeah, I don't use Tulip Pink like that. So, you know, sometimes I have to look. But the other two fabrics, FIGO, these were these two. So these were the two right now that I have that are sitting in my stash. And again, these are 10 by 10 inch square, or 10 inch squares, because the square is 10 by 10, right? So these two are the ones that I also have in my collection. But again, these are not necessarily, this one is not necessarily my pride and joy. It's not usually the colors that I use. The colors are more muted, they're duller, they're darker. So I may end up at some point gifting these, or I may end up, you know, doing a giveaway or something, because I don't really use these and I don't want to see them go to waste. So this one here, and then this one I do use this white, but it's all white. So unless I think about how to use this and incorporate it in a quilt, then yeah, I don't know if I'm going to use this either. So it's still in the plastic because yeah, white gets dirty quickly. And so I'm not a white person when it comes to using a lot of white. So yeah, we're still debating on this. The jury is still out. A magic art for carpet quilt? They could, but again, right? I'm just gonna say, TJ, they're not my aesthetic, so they're not my thing. So they might be in somebody else's stash soon, but we'll see. I have a lot of great giveaways that I can offer for folks because I will be working with a fat quarter shop. Woo! So I just got my kit today. I'll be unveiling some of that, but I will be working with the fat quarter shop. So we are working on one of their patterns. Again, this is the Layer Cake Carousel, and we're going to get started. Okay, so this pattern calls for us to use layer cakes, right? But they also call for us to square those layer cakes down. This is a free pattern. It's a free download from Fat Quarter Shop. And so I can tell you all about the pieces because it's a free pattern. So they tell you to trim your squares down to 9.5-inch squares. One of the reasons why a lot of people will tell you to trim your squares down is because once you iron them, sometimes you do experience a little shrinkage, so then they might not be completely 10-inch squares. So then this will have, this means that I'm not going to have them on sale on my site, but okay. So since they might not be true 10-inch squares when we measure them, and in this case, this is, if I turn the ruler around the right way. So this is a 10-inch square, but sometimes once you iron and you may spray starch them a little bit, they may shrivel up on you and may not be a 10-inch. So they suggest starting off trimming these down to 9.5 inches. Now I could have left these at 10.5, but I didn't. I don't pre-wash these fabrics, and I'll show you why, because you can kind of see it here. You can see where it's fraying now. This has been sitting in my collection not that long, and you can see all of the fraying. If I throw this cotton in the washing machine, it's going to fray even more. And then these are all small pieces. So I typically will not wash these before I do the quilting. I'll do it afterwards. Different strokes for different folks in terms of washing. Typically, people do not pre-wash pre-cuts. Typically. Just because, again, they're smaller, because they will end up fraying more. And if I wash these would fray even more than they have frayed here. So what folks tend to do is that they will, they'll wash it afterwards. And it just kind of changes the softness of the look, but it's not a bad thing. So again, you choose from the beginning. When you have yardage, you throw it in the washing machine. Somebody gave a really good example of pre-washing ahead of time. I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was from Mojave Quilt. They were talking about, like, back in the day when we first started learning how to quilt, a lot of the fabrics were of a different type of quality, and especially like the reds and anything that had a red dye in it ran much more than any of the other colors. So by putting it into the washing machine and washing it, it reduced the dyes running. And especially if you were using like a white or a lighter fabric, it would run onto that fabric. And so then we started using tricks like color catchers to wash the fabric and then to capture that dye so it didn't go into our fabric. So, you know, it kind of depends on how you prefer to go, but typically I won't wash my pre-cuts. And so, like TJ said, like sometimes this one didn't do it for whatever reason. They didn't have a crinkly edge or a pinked edge like this one does, which reduced the fraying on the edges of it. But what it also does is that if this were a 10-inch square, these little sawed pieces tend to go into your 10 inches. So what happens is you still don't have a true 10-inch square. So that's why you would square it down to 9.5 inches. So when I do this and I square these up, I can do this one of two ways. I can either do this block by block, which is a great way to do this, or I can do them in stacks. So to know me is to know, I don't like to spend a lot of time doing anything, so I absolutely will do stacks. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here. I'm going to stack them up as best as I possibly can to line these up. And then I'm going to use my ruler. I am using a 14-inch ruler, 15-inch ruler that I have. This is my Omni Grid. I like the bigger rulers for a variety of purposes, so I did pull this one out of my stash. I do have smaller rulers. You know how you put something down and then you can't find it? Okay, so this is backwards, but this is the Layer Cake Carousel. I'm using up my layer cakes today, and this is from the Fat Quarter Shop. It is a free pattern and it is an easy pattern. So the first two, I'm just lining up enough so that it is beyond my 9.5 all the way around. And I'm going to use my rotary cutter and just cut. I will turn this 90 degrees. Is that 90 degrees? 120? Yeah, 120 degrees. 180 degrees. I'm going to get it right. 90, 90, 180. Turn 180 degrees. So the point was up here that I just cut. Now it's down here. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to find 9.5. And if you're doing a lot of blocks, you can absolutely tape it out. I don't need the tape, but I'm going to measure twice, cut once. So I'm going to make sure it's at 9.5, make sure it's not 9.5, and then I will cut. You know, always got to double check like 3 times for me. 9.5. Okay, so these are done, and then we'll get the next set done. I'll move my directions out the way because I don't need those. Okay, and here we go. And again, I can stack them. I'm going to slide these back because ask me how I know that I could run into them. And again, I want to line these up as best as I possibly can. They are 10-inch squares, and I am trimming them down to 9.5. The great thing about this is that this is a patchwork square, is a patchwork quilt. So I don't have to do 9-inch squares. I could do, 9.5. I don't have to do 9.5-inch squares. I could do 5 and make it a smaller quilt. I could do 6-inch. I could do 20-inch. It'll be bigger, but I can decide how big I want my squares to be. I'm not married to these 9.5 that I'm using, but I am using a layer cake, so that's why we're going with the 10 down to 9.5. Again, I'm measuring twice, and ask me how I know, because, you know, I have messed up. I do have extras, so this called for 32 blocks, and there were 40 2 blocks in the layer cake. So if I mess up, I have 10 other blocks to pick from. But I'll say this, I picked out the 10 that I wanted. I mean, I picked out the 32 that I wanted. So that means that I have a couple that I have left over that were not necessarily my picks. So it is a little disappointing to mess up and cut wrong, because then that means that I have blocks that I wasn't necessarily thinking about putting into the quilt. And so again, we're going to line everything up as best as we can. We have enough room all the way around, so we are fine if it isn't 100% straight. Okay, then again, this is a 15-inch ruler, 15-inch square. I want this, the first time I do this, to be bigger than 9.5 inches. If I go smaller than 9.5, I'm done. If I go bigger than 9.5, I can always trim down, right? So you can always trim down. You have to add if it's too small. And sometimes it's hard to add, especially if you don't have any extra fabric. Okay, I'm swiveling that 180 degrees. So the good cut corner that was up here is now down here. I'm using that good cut corner as my edge to find my 9.5. And you know, and you see I get quiet, right? Because I have to pay attention. I'm measuring twice, so I can only have to cut once, because you can't cut more than once. You're either gonna cut it right or you're gonna cut it wrong. So I wanna make sure that it's right. I don't want 9 on this side, 9.5 on that side. And it's better to be a little over than it is to be a little under. So if I do a little scant over 9.5, I'm in a better place than if I do a little under 9.5. Okay, all of these strips go into my scrap pile because I can use them when I am stuffing my pillow. Good evening, good evening, good evening. How are you? Okay, and then these are the last of them. I want to say that, knowing me, I think I cut either 33 or 34 of these. So I have to remember that when I lay these out, that I actually cut, I think, 2 more than what I was supposed to, because, you know, I can't count. And then because I can't count, I always like to go over than to go under. Okay. And then just again, as a reminder, I am trimming down a layer cake. A layer cake is a 10-inch pack of a pack of 10-inch blocks. You can buy pre-cuts. You can, well, now you can't buy them at Joann's anymore. You can buy them at a lot of different fabric stores. Depending on the fabric stores you go to, depends on what types of pre-cuts you can find. So traditionally, you can buy the layer cakes at a quilt shop. The layer cakes usually represent a collection. So it is a great way of seeing a bunch of different fabrics by a different, in a collection as a whole from like a different fabric manufacturer. You can see all of their different prints. So in this case, for all of these fabrics, these are all part of Tula Pink, but they're not all in one collection of Tula Pink. So these are all Tula Pink fabrics. They're all together. They're not necessarily a part of the collection from Free Spirit. They may just be Tula Pink's originals. And usually on the back, and in this case on the label, it says Tula Pink True Colors. So a lot of the fabrics are the same. The colorway looks alike. This looks like it could have been the True Color collection, but it doesn't always have to be that way. So this is a great way for the manufacturers to get their prints out, for you to see them, you to audition them with different quilts. Think about which ones stand out to you more than others. The downside of a collection is that you don't get any say on what you get. They are predetermined. So I might sit here and say that I like this fabric and I think this fabric is really cute, but I may think this one is hideous, as I do. And that's okay because it's up to me. But if I think this fabric is hideous, I'm stuck with this fabric because it comes in this layer cake. So you don't get to go to the counter and say, hey, can you make me a layer cake? Nobody's going to sit there and do that. These are pre-packaged, they are pre-cuts, and they are what they are. So you would have whatever you have left over to do some other sort of project, maybe use it as a lining, part of your backing, whatever you do, but you get what you get. So I like yardage because then if there are certain colors that I like, I pick out what I like out the collection, and those are the pieces that I'm buying, and I can leave everything else on the shelf. Okay, so this pattern, in order to create this, we are doing 2 panels, if you will, 4x4 of our 10-inch blocks, which are now 9.5-inch. So we need to get started with that, and it doesn't matter how we do this. We want this to be scrappy, but one of the things that I'm going to try to do is mix this up enough that I don't have a print that looks alike together, like let's say this and this. I don't want these two together if I can help it, and it may happen and it may not. And I don't want necessarily the same colors next to each other. That's my goal when I put these together. If you are a layout person, you lay everything out. And so you can absolutely think about what goes in what, and you can have what next to it. It's going to be scrappy. It's going to get a little mixed up anyway. I'm not worried about that. But again, if you are particular, you care. If you're like me, you don't. So all I want to do is make sure that everything that touches isn't the same color and it's not the same pattern. That's all I care about. So I'm going to take my pieces and I'm just going to chain stitch everything together. So I will line up my edges. I will take them to my machine. And I am going to do both at the same time because nobody has time for a whole lot of stuff. And I am just going to chain stitch everything. I should have 32 pieces. Like I said, I might have 36. So that means that I have 2 sets, and that should be 2 sets. It should be 16 altogether. 2 in each set for a total of 16. So I'm going to do 2x2 and then 4x4. Hey, RV, how are you? Hey, Orvin, how are you doing? When I sew, I do use my 1/4 inch foot. I love my 1/4 inch foot. I love my 1/4 inch foot. It allows me to keep within a 1/4 inch. Traditionally, most quilts are 1/4 inch. You could get away with a scant 1/4. You could get away with a 1/8 inch if needed. We try not to use that because it doesn't give you much of a seam allowance and fabric frays. So it's possibly likely that your fabric over time may start to wear, and then the seams may break apart the narrower the seam. So I prefer to usually stay right with my 1/4 inch. I try not to go outside of that. I am doing wonderful. I need it today because those little buggers were a piece of work today. I tell you, we gave them 2 days for report cards. We gave them a 3-day weekend, and they came back to school tripping. And I was like, is it me? They wore me out today. So I had to come home, take a nap before I could get on here, because them chillins, they wore me out. Now I'm sitting here like it was hot outside, and you know, I didn't turn my heat down, and I don't know if I'm going through a personal summer. And we're just taking all of these through, and again, I'm just mixing them up. I'm making sure that I line my 2 fabrics up. If I squared everything up the way that I should have, they should match, and I'm taking them to the machine. These are only 9.5-inch blocks. So for the most part, I should not have to use a clip or a pin. If you are a clip or a pin person and you feel like you just absolutely have to use a pin or a clip, knock yourself out. Oh, wow, your spring break is already, see, that's what people that get spring breaks. We have to wait until Easter, and that is our spring break. So I have to wait. I am not on spring break yet, so I have another, 2 weeks? And this week and next week, and then we are off for a week. Okay, and again, I'm just lining them up with my hands and my fingers. I'm holding them together. I can take it to the machine. I'm holding the back, and I'm just feeding it through. I do hold the one side just so that they stay together, but I'm not pulling or tugging. I'm always careful to say that, because you don't need to pull on your fabric. You don't need to push it. You don't need to pull it to the back. Let your feed dogs in the machine do everything. My left hand is just a guide. It's making sure that my fabric doesn't go wonky. It has nothing to do with me moving that fabric around. Okay, and the great thing about this is that, again, this is a great quilt. I will take a break in a second as soon as I finish this to show you the pattern again, but I can talk about it. So the pattern itself is by the Fat Quarter Shop. The Fat Quarter Shop not only makes, has patterns on their website, but they also sell sewing and quilting gadgets and gizmos, as well as fabric. In addition to that, they have some great sew-alongs. I will be participating in some of those sew-alongs. I told them, you ain't gonna send me no fabric because I got enough of it. But, you know, then again, I may have to buy some just to match something that I already have in my collection, because why not? Okay. We don't want the grays together. Boom, down. Okay. And again, we're just lining everything up. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm doing good. With YouTube, I'm going to get better. So So if you need to tell me a comment, y'all need to come over to TikTok for the comment, because we're not going to discuss how pitiful I am with that, but I'm trying to get used to it, because who knows on my fate on Saturday on the Tickety Talk. So, yeah. Okay, so this is the last one, and again, I either did 32 or I did 34, and that's fine. Okay. Oops. So this is the Layer Cake Carousel. This is a quick sew. There are a couple pages, so there's some work to it. Right now, we're just working on getting this patch set up. It is a 16 by 16, and there are 2 of them that we have to make. So this is a free pattern on the Fat Quarter website. Right, I said it right, Fat Quarter website. So it is a free pattern on the Fat Quarter website. So you can go over there. They have a ton of free fabrics. Now, if it's free, it's for me. Absolutely. But there are times when there are patterns that I absolutely love, that I will absolutely purchase. So there are some people that are like, no, if I can't get it for free, I'm not getting it. I'm not mad at you. But for me, there are opportunities where I will absolutely pay for a pattern. And yeah, I will buy them. So all of my patterns are not free. I do try to do some videos and some demonstrations with free patterns, because I also think that it's important for new sewists to practice with something that may be easy, which might be a new pattern, than to go out and buy a whole bunch of patterns and then give up on quilting and not and then have all this stuff hanging around your house, and you're like, okay, I'm never going to use this. Why did I buy all this? So free patterns are a great way to get started. Okay, so these are together. And then what we're going to do is now go 2 by 2. And again, I'm not worried about these being in the same row. So that's fine that these 2 fabrics are in the same row. I just don't want them to touch. So I just want to make sure that it is scrappy and they're not touching. So I did 2 by 2. Now I'm doing 4 by 4. We're working with a total of 16 plus 16, which is 32. So that means that now I'm going to have 8 subsections. So that means that my rows will be done after this. So I won't be adding any more to make a longer row. Now, if I pre-planned this out, what would happen is I would make sure that I don't end up with a whole bunch of something in the same row, but we're going to live dangerously, and we are going to see what happens when we just mix it all up and we just, work it out. So, my goal is for them not to touch, but I am not worried about the fact that I do have 2 of the same thing in the same row. And that's just me, but again, you could absolutely lay it out and, do it in a more organized way. Your way, your quilt, your way. Oh, thank you for the heart. Thank you for tapping the screens at 1,000. Thank you on the Tickety Top. Okay, and then we're gonna open this one up. I did see a blue that I did like, and these 2 have the same prints in them, so I don't want to use those 2. These 2 have one in the same and then one different, so this one will work for me. Thank you for tapping the screen. Thank you again for the gifts on those people on the Tickety Talk. And here we go. And then we just take it to them. Okay, and this is meant, again, not to be something difficult. This is meant to be easy. So do not fret. just line everything up. And the great thing is that with a layer cake, even if my colors touch, because each of the prints in this one is different, I'm not going to have the same thing lining one up against the other. That's the good thing. So it might be the same print, but they won't be the same color, if I do end up with that. But again, we're going for now 2x2s, and we're putting these together to get now those fours. Okay, we'll put this on this end. And again, this is scrappy, so we are okay with what this looks like. Now my iron should be on because this is the time where I will press once I have finished these, because I'm going to start sewing the rows together. If I need my clips, I will have my clips for this as well. 1, 2, 1, 2. I think I have just enough to, so I think I have one extra, which is what it looks like, which is absolutely great, because that blue set off to the side. So I may have just 32. Okay. You don't want to pull in your fabric. You don't want to create waves. Creating waves will cause your seams to be off when you start stacking things together. It'll cause maybe your fabrics not to align up the way that you want to. So you want to try as much as possible not to do a lot of pulling. And the great thing is that this isn't on a bias, so I shouldn't have a lot of pulling in this when I'm doing this. Thank you, thank you, thank you again for tapping the screen on the tickety top. And then this is the last one here. And again, I'm not worried about the fact that these two are here in the same row. I am more concerned that they touch, and I don't want them to touch in the rows. And that does not mean that it won't happen when I put the rows together. So again, we chain stitched, so you can see it here. There was no need to break the thread as we were stitching. So they are all chained together, and then it just saves on thread. Now, to know me is to know as much as I have to pick something out, saving on thread is not necessarily something that I really am that conscious of all the time, but it is what it is. Let me get that iron started. Okay, so we have the row, okay, and then we have to make a decision. Do I want, let me move this out the way. Do I want my seams open? Or do I want them to one side? And it doesn't matter which side you go to, but you have to pick a side, like pick a team. So I could, depending on which way my rows go, one row could go this way. Then the connecting row can go this way, so they nest. Or I can just open up all the seams so that they lay flat like that. Preference for some people. Sometimes it will reduce the bulk if you do it this way, because sometimes I'll press the seam this way on all the rows, And then when I line those up and I stitch them together, I have a lot of bulk on one side and no bulk on the other side of the seam. But again, your choice the way you do it. Usually I press to one side. So take a pause for the moment. I've got to press all these. So I do like my Aliso iron for this. I do not, for the most part, do a lot of ironing. I just do a lot of pressing. Pressing means that I am not moving all around my fabric. I don't want to stretch it out as much as I can help it, so that when I am putting the rows together, I don't prematurely pull them longer than another row. So I have all these going this way. I can take my next row in my unplanned quilt here, and if I decide that these two are going to go together, I want these seams that I just pressed going this way. So that means that I need these seams to go this way. And that way they will do what is called nesting. JK. And I was working on a garment. My water bill is high, so we are not dumping out water. So you do hear steam, even though it's leaking. Uh-oh, because the thing is open. I was like, not my iron. No, it's going. No, it's not going. Somebody has the cap open, and I don't know why the cap was open. Okay. So let's get some clips. And we press the seams in two different directions. And then when we put them together, one is going to go to the left, one is going to the right. I use my two fingers just to kind of nudge them to those centers, and then I clip. And I'm only going to clip, for me, those seams, just so that it helps me to remember that they need to line up, which is going to give me my perfect points or those perfect crosses. And there's only 3 of them, so I only need 3 clips. Thank you again for the tabs. We are at 3.5K. And then here we go. Again, using my fingers and clip. Okay, so again, we have the 4s, and now these 4s are becoming 8s. And then the 8s will become 16s, and then each of those 2 squares will be done. And that's how quick these 2 panels will come together. I'm going to make sure the end is lined up. Put it under my machine. Get to the clip, which is why I like clips better than I like pins, because you cannot run over a clip. So if you forget to take the clip out, oh, your machine is going to remind you. If you forget to take the pin out, you might run over the pin. It may dull your needle. If it hits that pin exactly, it could break your needle. It could break the pin. It could also cause something to ricochet out. I made a rag quilt early on. It wasn't one of my first. My husband at the time loved the rag quilts when he saw them at the quilt shop, and so I made him one. And all I'm going to say is more power to y'all on them rag quilts and loving them, because I waited till the last minute to do it the night before Christmas, and even though I used spring scissors, that was a piece of work. It's really, this one really isn't that difficult because all we're doing is we're sewing rows of squares. And then we're going to connect those rows. So this is now, these are together. And again, I can make a decision and I can switch and decide that I want to open up these seams. So I don't have to, have them all closed if I don't want to, or I can kind of play with this seam here. And if I pop out a couple threads, I should be able to get some of the fabric to go in one direction and the other seams to go in the other direction, and that'll help this to lay flat. Okay. That means there'll be less bulk right here in the center by doing that, rather than having it go in one direction. Again, your choice, which way you want to go. Now I will get on the other side and press those seams flat. So right now I'm just doing it on this side because I want to train this side to make life a little bit easier on the other side. Okay. And this one is going to play games with me. I'm going to leave that flat on this side. Hey, Tam. How are you doing, darling? And again, I can pull those out or I can lay them flat. They're not playing in the direction that I want them to go. And we're not going to play with that today. Okay? And I will turn this over. And I'm just going to flatten out these seams a little bit, because they don't always lay flat the way that I would like them to. And so I do want to force them to go a little straight. And again, I'm not moving this iron a lot. I'm letting in this case, the steam do it. It will create some shrinkage, but it is what it is because like I said, I wasn't taking my water. I could have turned the steam off. That would have been too much like rain. Okay, so we have these so far. This is 2 done. I can either add on to that one or I can create another unit of 2x4 and then put those together. So let me put these over here for a second and get this out. So I am making a Layer Cake Carousel. This is by Fat Quarter Shop. I am right here now, and we finished each of the rows, and now I am putting these into 2x4s, and then we'll connect those together. So then I will have one panel of 4x4 and then another panel of 4x4. So I'm not sure of the question for the first time quilter. What's a good way to finish? Like just the edges or do stitches across? I'm not sure what you're asking, so I'm gonna attempt. If I have the quilt finished, I usually do a sandwich, which has batting and a backing for my quilt, and then I quilt over top of it. An easy suggestion for that is just to quilt straight lines or wavy lines. And the only reason I say wavy is because if you make them wavy, then you don't have to worry about being straight. So you could do like a wavy line. It would still be somewhat straight, like, you know, winding down the street with your car and you're like kind of wobbling. So if you do that, but you stay on a straight path, then that's the easiest way for me to quilt it than to do like meandering or something else like that. Just because you could just use a walking foot. This was a Tulip Pink layer cake, yes. It's not a problem. Look, I tell everybody when school lets out, my brain goes off, and so it's like, okay, now somebody wants me to think. Okay, gotta think. Okay, let me see if I turn this one down. It's gonna get that one, so I don't want that one. Look, it's like I said, it's not a problem. I can follow along. You know, see, this is what happens when you YOLO and a quilt top. Then when you're looking for the pieces that you need to go the way that you need them to go, then you're like, this one doesn't match. I don't like the way this one matches. So I'm just looking for the two the way that I want them to go, and then I'm just going from there. There, that one works. Okay. And, you know, you'll learn the lingo as you go, which is fine. You know, over time, watching videos, hanging out with people who quilt, you will absolutely learn the lingo. And to be quite honest with you, there are still terms that I am learning today. Or there are terms that I get stuck on. So I am not a Tulip Pink person. I do like these fabrics, but Tulip Pink is not necessarily as a collection my go-to. So I absolutely, like when people are like, oh, you got Tulip Pink. No, I do. So I typically don't know just because I don't buy it enough to know. But then once I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, that is Tulip Pink. So I'm familiar enough with Tulip Pink, but you know, like I said, it's not my go-to. This was part of a stash for layer cakes, and it was time to start scrap busting some things, and this is an easy enough quilt to make and that I could gift. Okay. And I went ankle down, and I'm so glad I did, because right about now, woo, this sister is sweating. Okay. So again, I took all of my pieces. I put each of these clips at the seams. I nested all my seams together, and then I just take it to the machine and press. And again, right now, if this is nothing else, right, before we do some other things with this, for a simple quilt, for a new quilter, this piece is easy enough for a new quilter. So doing a patchwork something is very easy because all you're doing is sewing the blocks together. And if we sew everything in units and chain piece it, it goes along quickly. Maybe not as quickly as we want to finish something in an hour, but it's not like it's going to take you days to do this. Okay. And again, like you can absolutely see this. And again, I'm not a Tulip Pink person. I'm not a Tulip Pink person. I just downloaded it. I may make the queen size. Absolutely. This is, and again, you can decide, because you could see the whole quilt looking just like this. So if you got 2 layer cakes, you could put them together and you make a big quilt, and you could leave it just in its blocks if that's what you chose to do. There's another step to this, but absolutely you could leave it like this. So this, I always say to people, it's your quilt. So if there's something in there that isn't rocking for you and you're like, no, no, don't like it like that. Nobody said that you had to follow the pattern exactly. The only people who feel like you have to follow the pattern exactly are the people who said, here's the pattern, I want you to do it just like this. And if they trust your thought process and your creativity, they will let you do it the way that you think best. Or the way that maybe you work best. And you might say, well, you know what, I can't do that step, but at least I can do this step. I can put all these together for you. And so again, just press those open. We can do a great press at the end, but we want to make sure everything is pressed. And press nice and neatly. Let me just make sure. These colors are alike, but they're not alike. They're not going to be alike today. Or I could, let me see if I turn this around. Nope. And let me see if I turn it this way. Nope. Nope. Okay. So we're back to the way I was thinking. Okay. And then this time, we're going to line those seams up. Okay, awesome. And if I missed your comment, excuse my eyes. Add a thin border, yes, because you're going to add a border at the end, or not add a border. And that is something else, like that's part of what you do. Like I don't have any more Tulip Pink. So I can either pick up a color from this and make it my border, or I don't have to add a border if I don't want to. So those are my choices. I could add a white border, and then I could, you know, go out and bring in another fabric to make another border. But you make that choice whether you want the border or not. Sometimes I go with a border, sometimes I don't. Okay, so again, thank you for tapping the screen. We are at 5,000, and I decided to go ahead and do the one panel just so that I get that one done. Thank you again for tapping the screen. I appreciate you. And again, thank you for rocking out with me. I am showing up in 2 places right now. So I am showing up here on TikTok. I am also showing up on YouTube. Because I'm still getting used to YouTube. And I said, you know what, girl? Let's do both. And I would say we're almost halfway through, right? A little bit more than halfway through, actually. Okay, I do want to press these open, but I have one panel done. So this is 16 by 16. So that's done, and I just need to press that center, and then we'll finish up the other panel, and then we start to do some magic. I have Free Spirit, a black jelly roll. Oh, awesome. You have more than I have, because like I said, I got, so these jelly rolls, this jelly roll, Lord help me, this charm pack. Okay, we're gonna get it together. I went from jelly roll to charm pack to finally what it is, a layer cake. This layer cake was part of Free Spirit, Tulip Pink. And this was something that I won from the shop hop that I did back in September. Was it October? New Jersey shop hop. And I won this, and I was like, you know what? It is time to use these layer cakes. And again, this is absolutely cute for, let's say, a little girl. Could you see this as like a unicorn quilt, right? This is absolutely cute. So we have this one panel done. We're going to set this aside, and we'll get the other panel finished up. And again, all of the 1, 2, 3, 4 are together, so these 4 just need to be sewn together. Thank you for lighting up my gift gallery with the friendship necklace. Thank you, Miss Aura Devin. I appreciate you. I have to get up for a second. See, wear them pajama shorts, and then your butt sticks to your leather seat, your leather furniture. Okay. And I never, like, no, I can't say that. We've had local quilt shops close, and I try very hard not to go to them when they close, because here come them sales. And I'm buying a whole bunch of stuff. Like I have buying a whole bunch of stuff going, yeah, I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna make that. And then I don't make anything. Okay, so we have this piece pressed. And then we'll press this one. Okay, and again, typically I don't use steam, and usually when I am in my space upstairs, this is a bigger quilt, so I opted not to do this one upstairs. So I came downstairs so I could work on my dining room table. And this one needed a little bit more room. And again, I'm just looking to see that I am not overlapping designs. I just don't want those designs hitting each other. The color, if they don't match up as much, I can be fine. That's what I'm saying, right? That 90% off, that's the problem. Even if 50% off, like, that's the problem. So even when I do quilt shop hops, a lot of times I go right to the sale bins, and I will absolutely clean out, sales fabric, and that's why I don't need to go to quilt shop hops. But, of course they said, are you going to quilt shop hopping? Yeah, of course I am. Are you going to the road to Virginia? Of course I am. I just have to do better with being a little bit more strategic with what I'm buying. Like, what makes sense to have at this point, rather than just, buying fabric. But absolutely, who could pass up a sale? Let alone a fabric sale. Okay, I moved my machine out of view here, but that's okay. Because all we're doing is sewing now the 4s together again to make an 8. And that's 2 by 4. The rows are already developed, so we're just putting these together. That's what I'm saying, like, and that's how they get you, especially like if you're not looking for something in particular. If you're looking for something in particular, then you may need, like, if I need a red and white quilt, I need red and white fabric. So now I may not be able to go into the sales bin to get the fabric because, yeah, they don't have red and white. And so they may have pink and orange. And if that pink and orange is cute enough, it's coming home with me. And then I have no idea what I'm going to do with that pink and orange fabric, but I do know that I could use it for something. So I bring it home, and if it becomes ugly enough, it might be the inside of a bag. If it's cute enough, it might become the outside of a bag. If it's cute enough, it might just still sit in my stash waiting for that perfect thing to come along that 5 years later, 10 years later still hasn't come along. So I still have some fabrics in my stash. I don't know what I bought them for, what I was thinking, other than the fact that, you know, the price was right. Okay. And so these are together. If you chose, and it would totally be up to you, you could add on to this. You don't have to do them in sections. So you don't have to do 2x4, so I can absolutely do a 3x4. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, at least you made the quilts. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you I've made every quilt. My stash is out of control. And I went to that quilt shop hop, and there were 96 quilt shops in the hop. I did not visit all 96, but I visited at least 50 of them. Like about 50, 53, 54 shops. Now, some shops I spent maybe $4, $5. And in one shop I bought a Bernina Q16 along with some fabric. So you could do the math between 50 shops and what I could have spent in each shop on average. And then I bought a Bernina Q16. So yeah, I spent a nice chunk of change. Could have went on a nice vacation for what I spent, rather than going to all those shop hops. I do have vacation plans planned this summer, but I may visit some of the shops that I didn't visit last year. I don't think did I win something from that shop? I did win long arming services from someone, and I do need to reach out to them for that. But, you know, it wasn't like I won this big prize and said, oh, I got to go back there. Hey, Marcy, how are you? Oops. 2x4, 3x4. So I am right now for my blocks. I am sewing the blocks 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 4 in each row. And right now I have 3 rows done. So this was 1x4, 2x4, and now this is 3x4. So I have, that's how many I have in each row. So when I finish this panel to do the next part, they'll be 4x4. And it depends, it's up to you to decide how you want to put them together. So the last panel, when I put that together, I did 2 2x4s and then put them together to get 4x4. I could have put them together like I am doing this one by one, and then just adding them. It's totally up to you how you put them together. There are some pros and cons for doing each. So sometimes it's easier to work better in units. and then hang them up on your design wall. And then if you need to make a change, it's easier to see it in parts than it is to try to see the whole thing at one time. So doing it this way, if I decide something doesn't work for me, I might be taking out multiple rows. Whereas if I did them 2x2, 2x4s into 8s, if you will, then I may not have to pull out as much. Okay, so we are now playing the game of where do I want this block to go to finish this off. And I can see it, I can see it. Don't want it to go that way. And it can't go that way. Oop, oop, oop. Okay, so we are going to go back up here. And I think I am going to stick with the way that I saw it. Here. Yep, that's the way I'm going to stick with it. So yes, if you are a tulip pink person, then tulip pink absolutely works for you. So like for me, you either love it or you don't, as a collection. Some people, like, all they have is like tulip pink, or is there a machine? There's a machine. No, Kafe has the machine. So Kafe has a Bernina that has that's the face of it is inspired by Kafe. Okay, or Kafe. Okay, and again, I'm taking that edge. Yeah, some people love the colors for tulip pink. And again, if you go, like, there are certain quilt shops, they will have a whole tulip pink collection. That's the one thing about quilt shops. And that's why sometimes you have to find the one that works for you. Because there are certain quilt shops in my area, and I know what their design choice is. And so if I want some specific fabrics, I know which one I need to travel to. Oh, Tula has a machine also? Okay. I thought maybe I saw one, but then I was like, oh, that wasn't it. So, okay. Card pass on Lori Holt. Oh, okay. I love. I'm a big bright person, but not so much with the prints. So usually the fabrics that read a color are usually my choice. So like this blue reads blue, so this works for me. But this works more for me than this does because of the mixture of colors. So if it's blue on blue, or red on red, green on green, like those prints work a lot more for me than to have mixed colors in a print. And again, that's me. Somebody's asking me to make a quilt and you have your own color line that you like, hey, knock yourself out. The difference is that for me, I can't see it. And I just have to trust the process because I either like it or I don't. So I made a quilt for somebody recently and I just couldn't see it. And I finished the quilt and I liked the quilt, but it wasn't my thing. And I was stuck with it for the longest time because I just couldn't see it. I was like, it's missing something, but it was just, it was what I had to work with. And so there was no fixing it for me, if you will, because I only had the materials I had to work with. And me adding things in wasn't going to change it. And it was going to cost more money if I did, but it just didn't work because I just couldn't see it. But again, if I can see it, I can see it. Like this had to grow on me for a minute when I was looking at it, just because these aren't necessarily my colors, my prints. But the more I kind of looked at it, the better. So when we started off with layer cakes. So for example, here's a layer cake. This is in my collection. I won this at a shop hop, and real rap, this is not my aesthetic. It's just not. I do not, like, I am not rocking with these colors at all. I think they're very mute. I feel they're very dull. They're not me. So the colors in the collection work together, but they're not me. So I was saying that I may end up doing like a giveaway of this and then giving these away to someone who may have a better home for this than I do. If I do use this, then I will probably use this. Because this at least will break up some of this, and then that white will work in with these colors. But alone, yeah, I wasn't seeing that. Okay, RV, I see you. Okay, so for this pattern, again, we're working with the Layer Cake Carousel. They told us, hey, make all your rows, and then once you made all your rows, we're putting everything together. So then once we put everything together, here comes the fun part. We're going to take this and we're going to put them right sides together, and we're going to stitch 1/4 inch all the way around. Now this should be 36 by 36.5 by 36.5. Keyword is should be. And then we're going to slice it up. We'll get a unit that looks like this, and then we will put all those units together. There'll be 4 of them that will create this. I will not add the borders on tonight, but they have you adding the borders on, and then you finish it up to get the final quilt. Okay, and then there's some more directions back here. Okay, so that's it for that. So again, let's get started with the next part. And if I measure this without knocking the iron off the table, I should make it to about 36.5, and lo and behold, I do. Each block was 9.5 inches. So 9.5 plus 9.5 is 19. 19 plus 19 is 38. Each seam is 1 inch, 37. This seam right here, wait a minute, did I say that right? Each seam is 1/2 inch. So 38 minus these 2, which makes a full inch here, is 37. This is 1/2 inch, 36.5. So that's how we know it should be 36.5, but is it 36.5 is a whole different ballgame. So we made sure that we gave this a good press. If we need to, we can press it some more. But what we're going to do is we're going to attach both of these blocks together. Now, this is where it could get that those match up. That's why, you know, it's nice to make sure that your stuff was maybe on a wall first before you got that done. You can eyeball it. I only see one where it matched up, and I'm not pressed. So I'm going to use my clips. You won't lose any threads that are here. And we're going to go all the way around. So this is why this is important, to make sure that all your seams are 1/4 inch, to make sure that your cuts are straight. If I wasn't on live, I might actually take my ruler and measure all the way around to make sure that everything is 36.5 by 36.5. But why do that when you can just stress yourself out and do it this way? Now, the good thing about this is if I'm not too far off the mark, about maybe an 1/8 inch off, I can nudge my fabric a little bit to make it work. But I am going to take my time, so it's like somebody coming in might go, oh my God, the girl is using clips. Yes, I am. I'm using the clips. I prefer the clips to the pins. Shameless plug. You can get these for $7 off the TikTok shop. There are 100 in here, and they look just like the ones I got off Amazon. Because I am good for stepping on them. I am good for popping them. And I'm like, okay, let me get some extra clips. I'm good for losing them. I'm good for leaving them attached to projects that I haven't touched in months. Yes, and to be honest with you, like I pinned for years. Where were clips when I was growing up and sewing? But it is what it is. I like them because I will tear my hands up with a pin, poking myself over and over and over again. So I absolutely love the clips. And again, I'm going all the way around here. If there is something in here that is off, I should catch it. And that's why it's important to just go ahead and clip and go all the way around, because if something is off, you will catch it ahead of time. And the good thing about catching it ahead of time is that you can like go back in and you can rip out the seam and change it so that they line up if they're terribly off. And if they're not terribly off, like I said, you can fudge it a little bit with your fingers and a little bit of pull. You don't want to pull it too much because it will wave your fabric when you're, going back to put the units together, and you don't want a whole lot of waviness in your quilt. You want that quilt to lay as flat as it possibly can. Okay, I think I got one more clip. Not that this one matters as being the last one. Yes, after I have binder clips, and that's what I used for years. I used the binder clips. I was like, we didn't have these clips, but we had binder clips. Okay, we're going all the way around this. No opening. We're going all the way around 1/4 inch. Again, the great thing about clips is you are not going to run over them like you do your pins. Thank you, thank you, thank you for those of you that are hanging with me out there in YouTube land. I have a thread that I need to cut. It is up to you how many clips you use. As I said, my clips go on my seams because that's where I need them to line up the most. Thank you, thank you, thank you for tapping the screen. We are at 12,000. Take our time. Hey, Coco. out on Clapper, darling. Where y'all double duty in? Okay, thank you, thank you, thank you for the gifts. Thank you for tapping the screen. Ooh, did that camera? That's a bad angle. Okay. Pull that in a little bit more. And I'm just going all the way around. Going to bed. Oh, Lord. The late night crew is, y'all wrapping up too early. It ain't 11 o'clock yet. Okay, and I'm just going all the way around. I have one more edge to go. I think. What happens when you lose track? The work of an administrator is never done. So why are they texting me at 10:30 at night? But that's okay. I will absolutely answer the call. Of course they are. Of course they are. I'll be joining them in less than a half an hour. That's why I had to take a nap. I gave myself 2 hours, and I'm good. I am doing very well. It always takes me longer to whip something together when I'm doing it live, because I stop to talk, I stop to read, but then I get it done, right? Because I'm good for stopping. Now I will get sidetracked, go and get some snacks, and then go, oh yeah, I was supposed to be working on that, right? Well, you have an early meeting. Oh, okay. I understand. Okay. So all of this has been stitched. Now, now it would be too much like right, to be on the page that, I was on. Okay. So the directions tell us stitch everything. Right sides together. So you see right now you're looking at the wrong side, you're looking at the seams. Then it tells us to cut, and we're going to cut from one end all the way through to the other end and do the same thing on the other side. Now, I have a bigger cutting mat. And yeah, but I could cut it right here because I'm lazy. With my janky ruler. So this is my janky ruler. I call it janky because, yeah, I cracked it because one day, yeah, it is what it is. But these rulers are expensive. This is a grip piece of plastic that sits on it, so it just keeps it from moving around when I apply pressure to it. But yeah, we don't throw away anything because we spend a lot of money on stuff. Okay, so I can either use my scissors or I can use my ruler. and I can hit the center, which this isn't going to be long enough to do. I may need another ruler. Okay, but I'm going to make this work. So one of the things is that if I hit the centers of this, I should ride right through it. Because this ruler is shorter than this edge. But I'm going to keep it flat. I'm just going to ride right through the centers, and I will be able to keep a straight line and have this work. And then, yes, Jennifer, why aren't you standing up? Because I always cut sitting down. Unless I need to use my weight to apply pressure, then I stand up. There are 2 cuts in this, right through the center. Line everything up. Bam. Yeah. And then this one is the halfway point of the center. Oops, that one fell. Okay. So again, we can line these up to the centers. And again, you work with what you have. Could I have a longer ruler in my stash? I absolutely could. Am I going to spend that money on that longer ruler to have that in my stash when I don't use that longer ruler all the time? Absolutely not. Okay. I have one more to cut, but I do want to show you. So this is the new piece that we have. So it gives you a new look from those squares. And then we press all of these open. And we're going to have 4 blocks that look like this. And then like a 4-patch, we're going to sew them together, and this whole center will be done. So I'm going to put these 2 over here for a second while I tackle that other triangle. And just like a 4-patch, we're going to do 2 by 2. And then we're going to stitch all of those together. And of course, let me get my iron nice and hot because I know it's been sitting for a minute, so it automatically shuts off. And again, I'm finding the center and the center of my edge. I'm finding those corners. And I'm starting that cut. Okay. Then I'm using this edge to line this up, and I'm finding that center. And I'm cutting. Yep, I have a little bit off, but that's not a problem. We'll make that work. That's what happens when you ain't paying attention. Okay. So let's press all 4, and then we'll get this together. And we'll be done. So this is a quick quilt top that I was able to put together in under almost 2 hours. It'll be just about 2 hours when I finish this. Let me go this way so I can see what I'm doing. Again, I like to start on the back just because it allows me to lay those seams a little flatter. I will give it a great press once this is together. You do want to be careful because now you have triangles, and triangles mean that you have cut your fabric on the bias, which means that there's a little bit more stretch. can see that coming together. Let me do this one. And again, I prefer the other side just so that I can see what I'm doing. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I can always see a vision from color. If I can help it, I like to print them out. You will see that the way they lay it out is just to put those blocks together. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a 4 patch. And then they have them adding a border around the edge. Again, your choice how you want to finish this. So if it's just the 1 layer cake I'm using, I can make this a wider quilt by adding borders to it. And I can add a thin, in this case what they're asking for, border to it. And then I can add a thicker border to it to give it a little bit more width and length. So totally up to you which way you choose to go with this. Okay. Now your colors are not going to match up. So you are going to have this scrappy look here. And again, you can choose to decide how you want that to show up for you. Okay. Once you decide how you want that to show up for you, you're going to lay these two together. Remember, I didn't do the other one, so I do need to press that. I'm going to line these 2 points up together, so I will lose the points in this seam, but that's going to be okay. Going to line up those and clip that on the end. Remember, there's a little stretch because this is cut on the bias. So I want to make sure I line everything up and clip. If I feel like they don't, like it's a little wavy, I can clip again just to find the midpoints to these. That's up to me. Take this back to my machine and I can do one final press. Sitting here looking at the table as I would hang this on the wall. And again, I'm not doing a lot of pulling with this because I am on the bias. Now, when I get to my little triangular point, I gotta be a little careful because there's a lot of layers to get through. Okay, got it. Let me back up over that just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay. And you can see where it just gets a little, that point gets a little lost in there, but that's fine. So it's a little lost, but no big deal. Because nobody's gonna notice, except for me. Okay, I do have a straight to press. So then one side is done. We only have the other side to do, and then these two to put together, and the quilt top is done. Like I said, other than the borders, and nobody got time to be sitting there watching me put no borders on tonight. Plus, I need to decide what I want these borders to look like. So I'm trying to decide, and I wanted to see what this would look like before I decided on borders. I am going to press these seams open. I didn't know if I wanted to pick up a particular color in the border, or if I wanted to just keep the border white. Again, white is not, I put white in quilts, but they're not necessarily my friend. The fabric, if you iron your color fabric toward the white, and even white itself, it shows through. So white fabric isn't necessarily the fabric of choice for me. But there is some pink in here. There's purple, there's green, there's blue. So I could pick up one of those other colors. But I'm just going to press open these seams. There's so many seams in here. I'm trying to go over the seams and not do a whole lot of ironing one way so that those seams go in opposite and different directions. Okay, so great, that's a great press. So there's a lot of bulk right here, but I managed to press all of that down. Okay, so this one's done. This side is done. And we just have this side to go. So we just need to press the seams open, sew this together, sew the other piece to this piece, and whoop, done. And again, 10:45 will not take me 15 minutes to do this. I started at 9 o'clock, so all things considered, I finished in 2 hours. I try not to have, I knew that making a quilt was going to take longer, but I try very hard to think of easy projects to do that I don't necessarily have to edit. Okay. Thank you to everyone for tapping the screen. We are at 14,000. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you for those of you who sent a gift. I do appreciate that as well. And I always try to make sure that I thank folks. Hey, Miss Tata. I try to make sure I thank everyone before I get off of live, so I try to say it and say it often. Okay, so this one's done for pressing. And then we need to press this one. And I like it because you have your 1, 2, 3, 4 center squares that are in the quilt, and then you have the outer squares that are now these triangles. Hey, Miss Belinda. And then we are done. So the only thing that I have to do is pretend like I want to do contents later. But that won't be done tonight. And tomorrow night I have, so I will be going on Thursday with Shim. We'll be going on YouTube and Nana Makes, and we will be working on the Wicked quilts. We will be finishing one of them. Which one, I don't know yet. I'm still trying to decide myself. But one of them. So I'm going to line these up. Again, I'm not worried about these two being the same print because they're different colors. But I can flip this. And then I have 2 different prints. So that would work. I have two different prints, so these two would work. So it's totally up to me how I want to line them up. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing the live. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know I always appreciate you ladies. We are going to clip it right here in the center. We're going to clip. And right over here on the edge, and we will clip. And again, remember we cut those triangles. So because we cut those triangles, if there's a little bit of off, you can kind of pull it just a little bit to get yourself that straight line. I'm gonna need this, right? So we'll keep this over here for a second. And again, this is an easy quilt to make. What makes pre-cuts wonderful is that you don't have to do the cutting for part of it, right? So you're not cutting yardage down with pre-cuts. I don't mind cutting it, but it's a great way to get a variety of fabric, to give yourself something scrappy, to check out a collection and decide if you need additional pieces of fabric from that collection, the ones that may be standing out to you the most. So people love pre-cuts for that reason. They're great for things like jelly roll races and patchwork quilts. This particular pattern, because it is a patchwork type quilt, you could have used a charm pack, or any size square that you wanted. So if you didn't go with a pre-cut, you absolutely could have cut 6-inch squares. You could have cut 12-inch squares. If you did not starch and iron your blocks, you could have left them as 10-inch squares. So as long as all the squares were the same size, you were not married to resizing your squares. You were not, you're not married to starting off with a 10-inch, or what we call the layer cake. So you absolutely could make this any size that you wanted. So this quilt would be bigger. It's going to be one size at the layer cake size. It is going to be a completely different size using charm packs. So you would have a smaller quilt, or you could use it for my bag people that are out there. You could use it for a bag. So you could take this as a smaller piece and make a great scrappy duffel bag, and use it for that. So it's totally up to you how you use these pieces. If I, could see this, I could have gone with several other prints. They could have been in the same colorway. And then I absolutely could have made a jacket out of this, a skirt, a patchwork skirt, that had some different dimension other than just squares. But again, you make that decision, for what you wanted it to look like for your final project. Thank you, JK. That's the one thing, again, that, I like about quilts, again, is that you make the decision where you start, stop, how you change, how you're going to use it. You decide what that's going to look like. And I'm just opening the seam just because it is a little bulky and I do want to reduce some of that bulk. I can hold that iron there for a little bit just to give it a little ease. Okay, so here we go. And again, the shocking thing, what is Jennifer going to use? She's going to use her clips. And again, I'll look to see if, and in this case, all I really care about is making sure that I'm not going to have the same color line up and throw off what this looks like. That's all I really care for this one. I'm going to add my pin, my clip, or my pin. Did I make it? Did I make it with my 7 minutes? Okay. I should be able to get this seam in 7 minutes, right? Unless something happens. I'm going to clip it at the end. I'm going to clip it at the seam. In the center. Again, if you want to clip in between here, that's up to you. These are small enough that I don't have to do that. I go to the end because going to the end helps me to see if these are going to line up. It also helps me to distribute the, if I have a little bit more on one side than the other. So it'll help me to kind of distribute that if needed. And then we'll take this back and we have one more seam here. Other than, again, the binding, and we're not doing the binding tonight. So we may take another night. Don't ask me when. I only scheduled for one day today because I don't know what my plans are. So Friday, it's my birthday, and I don't have plans for it, but I'm supposed to get my hair done. Because why make plans when you can schedule to get your hair done? So I'll be doing my hair on Friday. Well, I won't be doing my hair, but I'll be getting my hair done on Friday. And I didn't want to schedule a live because I was not going to lie to myself and say that when I got in from the hairdresser that I would get online. So, and Saturday, my other friend, thank you, Monica, my other friend, her birthday is on Saturday. So usually if we can, we hang out together. So we didn't make any plans for Saturday. So if we choose to get together, I didn't want to say, well, I'm going to do a live on Saturday for that reason. So yeah, I didn't schedule it. Just for those reasons. So, you know, if I hop on either one of those days, it'll just be a hop on because I just happen to be home. And then Sunday, I don't know, you know, because it's the weekend. And again, if we can't figure it out on Saturday, we might figure it out on Sunday. So I kind of wanted to leave the weekend open for that. I will do a regular schedule for the following week because, yeah, that's a little bit easier to plan out. So I will plan that out. And just have this one little section left. Just kind of back stitch over that last little edge right there. Okay, bring my ironing pad back one more time. And let's get along this one part, and then it is finimo for the inside, and it's just a matter of adding a border. So again, we'll press. I do like to press the outside. It helps your fabric, it helps your thread to get those seams to lay flatter by pressing the outside first and then flipping it over and pressing the inside. Thank you, thank you, thank you for those of you that were on YouTube, even though I couldn't see your comments. I'm telling you, I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn. First of all, I actually stayed on YouTube the whole time, which is a miracle. So I saw one or two flash across the screen, but I'm going to get better at that. I need to pay attention the next time somebody does it. But a lot of people do it in StreamYard, and I know that shows up differently. Okay. So this is not going to be a real heavy press because I will take it upstairs onto my big iron and I will do a heavy press on my big iron. Thank you, thank you, thank you again for rocking with me this evening. My YouTube folks hanging with me. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody that hung out with me on TikTok. And I will get up in my booty shorts and I will hang this up on the wall so that you can see where we are so far in this process. I try very hard. I'm gonna break it up though. Like Renee did this great idea. She did a part 1 and a part 2. I was like, okay. So I may do like another quilt or something like that where I do a part 1 and part 2, just so I don't, have to stress myself out with some things. Okay. So give me a second. Oh, I'm gonna get up. Like I said, with my booty shorts on. They pull them little shorts down a little bit. I don't need to move that. And I will go back over this process again. So again, we worked on a layer cake quilt today. We used a layer cake. A layer cake is a 10-inch fabric pack, 10-inch squares. And this was by Tula Pink, Free Spirit. And I used a pattern by the Fat Quarter Shop. The pattern was a Layer Cake Carousel. Or we'll say carousel. Now, I know this is crooked as hell. So it is a free pattern on the Fat Quarter Shop, Layer Cake Carousel. There are a lot of free patterns on their website. You can absolutely go on and check out the free patterns. They do have patterns that you can purchase as well. Should have turned the table the other way, but that would be too much like right. Okay, let me move you first. Let's see. And so then you can see that. Let me pull this one out. Now, let me see. We may have to travel a little bit. Go past all the sewing stuff. And we'll aim you over here in this corner. And it's crooked, so don't talk about my hanging techniques here. But you can see what that final quilt looks like. So all it needs is a border, but you can absolutely see each of the blocks. For the 4-patch, you can see all of the different prints that are there. They are reading much darker on the cameras than they are in the actual quilt. So it is a lot lighter, a lot more springy, but I like it. I could have taken maybe this purple that is lined up together, like those 3 purples, if I really felt some kind of way, and mix those up a little bit more so you could see those purples there and see how they're all together. But I like it just the way it is. So I think it came out the way that I wanted it to come out. Like I said, it needs a really good press. Then I decide the border. So the border may be like a white, if you will, all the way around it. I could use the leftover scraps that I have from the layer cake to outline the binding. So I'll make a decision about what that looks like. But the final quilt is finished. So again, thank you everyone who joined me. Thank you for 17K likes on the Tiggity Talk side. Thank you everyone who joined me on the YouTube side. I really appreciate you, and we'll see you the next time. But before I forget, because I said I would remember, this is a Layer Cake Carousel, and the Layer Cake Carousel is by Fat Quarter Shop. It is a free pattern that you can get. They are real quick, they are easy, and they are beginner friendly. So if you are interested, even though my pattern shows up backwards, it is a free pattern on the Fat Quarter Shop. So you can absolutely go to the Fat Quarter Shop. You can get this pattern and absolutely follow along. You can replay the video on YouTube and make a quilt yourself using layer cakes, or you can cut out 32 10 or 9.5-inch squares to make it. So until next time, thank you so much everyone, and we'll see you again on social media for a new project and a new day. Have a good one.